What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for April 28th, 2025. 4.1.1 is starting its final push to release, and we finally had a Star Citizen live session with devs, but yeah, it was telling, and we had huge ship nerfs. All that and more on today's Week in Review. And as always, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take all of the official Star Citizen news each week, put it into one video, and share some of my opinions about it. I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike. Stop by and say hi if you haven't yet. I really enjoy seeing you guys over there. Quite a few of you came by this week. But with that said, we have a lot to get through. And before we do, let me share with you today's sponsor. Thank you to Exter for sponsoring today's video. I've been using the same old back pocket wallet since before I met my wife, and Exter reached out and offered a few cool products to check out. So let's start out with the newest one, the Exter Wallet Pro. This is an upgraded version of their original wallet. It can hold up to 14 cards while remaining sleek in your pocket, and it has built-in RFID protection. You know about next-gen consoles for gaming? This is a next-gen wallet that has this super cool metal card ejector trigger for quick and smooth retrieval, and it's made with premium materials, no plastic at all. This thing is built to last, and because of that, it comes with a lifetime warranty. This is your wallet for life. I also have some really cool travel products here. The Grid Backpack combined with the Travel Pack Vacuum Kit. The backpack can support up to a 16-inch laptop and has a ton of internal organization, and even has a water-resistant 600D body with waterproof zippers. But the real cool thing here is the vacuum kit. This thing can give you up to 60% more space in your backpack or suitcase. It is super portable, comes with a USB-C rechargeable pump, and it works great. So if you like any of this stuff, use my code SaltEMike at partner.exter.com/SaltEMike to get additional discounts on top of the current spring sale, which is 30% off already until May 19th. But if you use code SaltEMike, you can get up to an additional 10% off. So get on it. And thanks as always for engaging with our sponsor. Exter is a new one with us, so make sure you give them a good look, as it really helps out the channel. But with that, let's jump into some patch notes. All right, we'll start out on Tuesday with a 4.1.1 PTU that was Wave 2. Monday was a holiday, so the week started on Tuesday with that PTU patch. And the first thing to talk about is the fact that they removed patrol missions for some reason. I never caught the reason why. They did add military and council script to the freight elevators when you earn them by completing missions, basically. So Wigglow Favor is going to be much easier to earn than ever before, so we love that. You can kind of, if you don't want a PvP, you don't have to now and earn script that way or earn favors that way. And script is sent directly to your home hangar. So wherever you choose your home, choose it wisely. So you do need to head all the way back to collect it, and the two types look really awesome. So that's a positive as well. And them being physical, of course, gives players the ability to steal them from you, so make sure you're careful. A lot of the Wicklow missions were updated last week, with a lot of it using Ace Interceptor helmets, and obviously there's missions for that script to turn in for favor. For bugs, they mostly were fixing Redeemer issues, and that was like half the bug fixes for the patch, so yeah. Then Wednesday, moving on, we had a 4.1.1 PTU. They basically ended up moving to Wave 3, which means they are kind of starting their final push to get the patch out. And right away, they re-added the patrol missions. I had a much better time with them this week compared to my previous week, and I even saw my first orange mission after recopying my account, and possibly that was what fixed my issues from last week. They also added maintenance missions again. I didn't quite get them to work correctly though. Like previous missions, the pipes failed to notice they were repaired, but I messed around with the fuses and the mission just randomly completed. So don't know what's going on there, but they're definitely not ready. They also added the patrol mission to Pyro under the unverified tab. I actually saw it in the verified tab, so that's not correct in the script, but yeah, it's in the verified tab under Headhunters. I caught it, but I must have kind of not hit record on this one. So yeah, here's a live stream clip of it at lower quality. I apologize for that. And it makes you kind of travel way more than you have to in Stanton. And the Stanton one, they start out at 30K, and the Pyro one started out at 50K. So I don't really know if it's worth it. But yeah, if you're living in Pyro, you do have the option for patrol missions through headhunters. And what is crazy, they are still trying to fix the same cargo bug for like 2 months now. The one where the cargo gets stuck and locked to the grid, which is kind of nuts, but they did fix one. Our ship hologram was not showing up in our MFDs, but it is again. And then Thursday, we move all the way to wave 4. And yeah, the feature updates started out with Pyro Outpost selling Cambio Light salvage canisters, so players don't need to salvage to complete the missions. You can also buy fuses as well, just in case you didn't know. And they replaced the Idris with the Polaris as the largest ship to fight in the new missions. And people were not happy, as they were enjoying stealing them and yeah, flying them around as if they were their own. And they made the Polaris a lot slower in terms of pitch and yaw this patch. Some people are making some connection, like they want to sell the Idris again, so making the Polaris worse is their idea, and that they're nerfing the Polaris to do that. I wouldn't put it past them, but I also don't think that's the case. They probably are doing it to the Polaris to make the Polaris mission more fun. Yeah, so they disabled proximity assist by default. I've been told to turn this off for what feels like years. I never did, but I didn't notice any big difference when trying to land, so let me know what that even means, because I don't really care. I just fly cargo and mining ships for the most part. For bugs, the only one I really looked into was the Valakar fangs, and yeah, I wasn't sure if this was because I didn't have like a rock that I was driving around or a geo, but they were stuck under the ground and refused to come out. Friday, 4.1.1, we moved to all backers. So it's moving. They're trying to get this thing out. They're trying to get it to a lot of people, and they're trying to stability test it, right? I assume they want it up through the weekend, and so far that has been the case. I am actually recording this really early Saturday night, so I can get some rest this weekend. Main updates here are adding UEE training missions for Fleet Week, and it is 3 different ones, kind of intro missions for players that lead up to the ghillie missions that we've seen on the PTU for a while now, and I kind of have the same feedback for them on these. Voice lines aren't teaching the player anything. They're just putting them in front of a problem and not really walking them through how to solve it.
Hey there, rookie. Welcome to the Navy Patrol training experience. I'm Lucas Baramsko, but my students call me Gilly. I've served in 6 squadrons and have over 10 years of teaching under my belt. We're going to be running you through 3 exercises covering a basic patrol. While not as intense as the real deal naval training, this should give you a pretty good idea of what life is like for new recruits learning the ropes.
The first mission is a patrol intro, so just a patrol mission, kind of tells you what to do. And then the next one is a patrol mission with hostiles. And then the last one is a protect friendly mission. Yeah, all kind of the new missions that we have. And then there is a mission to hunt a stolen frontier fighter, or slicers, Polaris. The mission is hard to get, so people are going to fight over it in the Mobiglass, which I think is a huge mistake on CIG's part. It can be shared, and it's the only one. There's only one active one on a server at a time, so this is going to become a problem, my guess. And to that, I tried to find it for 4 hours, never saw it on my stream, but they had a focus test later that day, and yeah, it's exactly as I expected. 500 people begging to be in a party with the one player who was able to accept the mission, so they were able to focus test the mission. How can you focus test a mission, guys, when only one person can have it? What are we doing? Like, what are we doing? That's actually crazy. And then even better, the mission was just randomly failing. So then a new person had to get it, and then you had to invite them to the party so they could share it with everyone. It was a disaster. And I don't know if it's just ignorance or what, but that is one of the dumbest choices I've seen CIG do so far. They also updated the 890 jump and the reclaimer to kind of feel similar to the Polaris, much slower pitch and yaw and stuff like that, right? And then the bespoke gun on the Polaris is getting slower, less range, but more damage. And they also said they did a rebalance to make military components more viable. Kind of smallish buffs to things like coolers and power plants, but big regen buffs on militaries, kind of the shield side, but then also debuffs to competition items, but nothing really done to stealth. And stealth has really been the meta, and that's been, you kind of have to go with stealth if you're PvPing. On the PvE side, not so much, But yeah, let me know what your thoughts, especially if you're PvP inclined. Is stealth always going to be the meta? Is that what you always want? Or do you want reasons to use competition or specifically military? I would think PvP would be more on the competition and military side and less the stealth. I would love to see stealth ships be stealth ships and non-stealth ships like the F-7A Mark II not be a stealth ship, right? So yeah, there's that. For bugs, I went right away to check out the mining bag refining issue, and it works correctly. Even better, the moment you refine bags, they are available to place back on your ship or someone else's, so you do not have to wait for a 30-minute or 30-hour job to complete to get your bags back. That's awesome. And yeah, this will work really well one day when groups have a reason to mine together, but if you're RPing and having a good time, it's going to work great. So that was the patches for this week. Let's move into a very short roadmap update. All right, and as I said, quite a small roadmap update this week. They're just updating the 4.1 cards a little bit. Patrol missions and ambush ones are committed, but as we found out, the UEE training missions were a little bit more in-depth than just the original ghillie missions that we saw during most of the PTU, and new hairstyles were committed for 4.1, while a few more for the PTU are considered tentative, and that's really it. I don't expect much in the terms of roadmap updates until 4.1.1 is out. Whenever that happens, the next roadmap update will probably be a bit exciting because it will say more about whatever's in the next patch. But for now, don't expect much in terms of that. Looking forward to whenever we get our next monthly report. That will probably be a bit more interesting because maybe it will be telling in what comes in the next patch. But with that, let's move on to video updates. All right, and like I said in the intro, we had a Star Citizen Live Q&A session with the lore team titled The Story So Far. And yep, all this time when we come back with an SCL about lore of the game. The show that is, you know, it was actually really fun. I enjoyed it. It was a good watch, but like always, we aren't going to get a ton of information about the game. But they did start out with something that was somewhat gameplay related.
I'm going to start with probably our most recent one, just for recency bias, the regen crisis. Was introduced in 4.1. Why don't you tell us what the regen crisis is?
So high level, you know, what was it, 3 years ago? We had introduced this concept of regen. So it was a fictional way to justify why players are respawning. Came up with this lore behind it of the Ibrahim spheres and imprinting and stuff like that, and actually did it sort of in the timeline of the fictional universe. So it happened while players were playing. We introduced the tech. We kind of showed how the Imperator and the other people were kind of reacting to this type of thing. But now, basically, for whatever reason, the efficiency of the technology has been failing. So. Spoiler, it's not affecting the players, but for the majority of the NPC population, the efficacy of the regen tech has been dropping significantly. So basically, death is now becoming a thing again. They thought they'd kind of conquered it, and now it turns out that they're not. So currently, the UEE and the Imperator are basically trying to scramble to figure out a solution to kind of research and science their way out of this predicament to hopefully try to restore the tech to its former glory.
And yeah, the game design wants you to turn in valuables to Rayari to help with this regen crisis, but it's not really a good payout. And they do go on to explain that this is only the very start of this story, and that we'll likely hear a lot more about this process. So I'm willing to let them cook, but you aren't going to get a ton of players to engage in this if the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and it just isn't right now. And speaking of what's next, they might be hinting a little bit at, you know, what's next with this clip.
Is the regen crisis a precursor to Death of Spaceman? Is this, when this storyline wraps, will it have some effect on Death of a Spaceman when it gets introduced?
I mean, don't spoil.
Fair enough. Stay tuned. Keep playing.
Yeah.
I tried.
I feel like if the answer was no, like a straight out no, that would have gotten, you know, more clear that, like, hey, this isn't happening until closer to 1.0. And yeah, maybe the story is going to go a little bit deeper into the player side than what we have right now. Maybe they're fibbing with us a little bit about it not only affecting NPCs and not players. And then we also have Death of a Spaceman right now, and they kind of address that as well.
And then last question about the regen crisis. Is the current respawn issue in 4.1 part of the B story, or is it a bug? No, that's a bug.
I wish it was. That would have been clever of us.
So yeah, this is clearly a bug. I thought that was very obvious, as it goes against the major item recovery changes to just lose all your stuff randomly for no fault of your own. And lastly, they address the Rayari versus Wicklow missions, since they really do seem in competition with each other, right?
This month's story element was twofold: Wicklow's arrival and the regen crisis. This person wants to know, they were both after the same minerals. They were both after the same resources in many ways. It's like, does people helping Wicklow, is it going to hurt Rayari? Is this, are people automatically bad for choosing to get their ship instead of helping the human race?
Yes.
I mean, it is effectively a moral choice. So, but I mean, they're technically the same story. They're just two halves of it. So the sort of B story is the resource mining and stuff like that. But we just gave you two options of what you wanted to do with it. For people who didn't necessarily wanted to, even if they didn't necessarily want to give it to Wicklow, you had the option of going to Rayari. If you wanted the items instead of the money, you go to Wicklow. So.
And there's a good chance Wicklow's just trading them right back to Rayari for
100%
price. So
yeah.
So it sounds like it was just player choice. Like if you didn't want anything from Wicklow, you needed to sell your stuff somewhere, so you probably want money for it, and they gave you that outlet at Rayari. And we probably shouldn't look too deep into Rayari missions for now, but maybe we see more in a future update. Who knows? But with that, let's move on to other updates. And as always, we'll start out with a sneak peek. And with all the ship sales coming, I expect many sneak peeks to be very similar to this one. This is some ship turret. It looks pretty Crusader to me, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. So yeah, we got Invictus coming up, so it's going to be all ships, nothing else in the sneak peeks. If it is something else, I'm going to be super excited, and I'm sure you guys will be too. And then we'll go into dev post. Scorched items are first. First, someone thought that maybe Scorched armor had some sort of extra stats. So Zach went in to the forums to let them know that they don't, and it's just the attachments. But he also let us know that the size 2 stabilizer was not working correctly. So it will now consume more ammo than a regular one, which is its debuff while having, I think, a damage buff, if I remember correctly. And then Citcon interaction. So one of my favorite people, Ian, went onto the forums to say that they have already done some of the interactions, but I'm calling them Citcon interactions because the player was talking about, pressing buttons on the elevator and things like that. But they did something, in my opinion, way more useful. Key cards and interactables being used directly from your backpack and having animations for those. So they do still sound like that they want to work on those things, and that they probably are working on those things, but just trying to account for things like EVA and other, systemic, diegetic, and in-world stuff, as they say. And that's all I got for this week. So thank you so much for watching. It was a pretty dead week in terms of everything else outside of the patches, but the patches have some pretty cool stuff, and 4.1.1 is looking quite fun, outside of some of the obviously mind-numbing choices around that Polaris mission. Hopefully they get that addressed. Hopefully that is just a simple oversight and a mistake, because if it's not, that's crazy. And that's where I'll leave you guys this week. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, I will catch you next week for hopefully a more exciting one, but we'll see.